Warm greetings, everyone. On behalf of W4W Foundation, a think tank instituted as a citizens collective, we welcome you to another session of Wednesdays for Water. The conversation today is on Water Pollution Series 3 on navigating waste and wastewater in the Himalayan region. The objective of Wednesdays for Water is to engage in conversation with water experts, grassroots practitioners, policymakers, and youth to explore the complex intertwined issues associated with water and the possible solutions. It has expanded since then to have more activities like the Friday Waters and the Monday Munching with Women for Water, besides organizing water workshops, water walk and talks, seminars, special courses, and conference panels to contribute to water conservation in various possible ways. Please visit our website www.w4w.in for more details. We are running a water pollution series to bring our conversation focus on the problem of plastic and other wastes in our water bodies, particularly the Ganga Basin. Today's session is a part of the Wednesday series in collaboration with the Center for Global Affairs and Public Policy, shortly known as CGAP, as a part of the project tackling plastic pollution in the Ganga Basin. The project aims to address the degradation of the mighty river through research expeditions at several locations, youth and community outreach programs conducted all over the country, and water conversations with experts and policymakers. We have Preeti Chauhan, who will be moderating the session today. Preeti is a social development entrepreneur. For more than 7 years, Preeti has been working in the environmental education sector across Ladakh and has also implemented small-scale infrastructure projects in Kargil and Zanskar. In 2020, she founded her own organization, Little Green World, and has worked as a research partner with Dr. Katie Colon on a National Geographic Explorer project. I would like to invite Preeti to continue with today's session. Over to you, Preeti.
Thank you, Prashaka, for the greetings and welcoming everyone. When I start my journey, first I would just like to say a few lines about me. I've been based in Ladakh, in an Himalayan region, and I'm originally from Mumbai. And waste is something which actually drove me to come to the mountains and work in the region. And waste has been something that triggered to do what should I do, and changing my career from a corporate employee to a social entrepreneur in the region. And Himalayas have been very close to me, and over the past 5 years, I have been trying to see this problem very closely. And the more I stay in the region and the more I work in the place, I get to know how complicated or how complex these problems are. I would just like to show one video, or 1 second. So if you can all see this, this is the waste which is flowing in the river, and why it happened or how it happened. It was a rainy season, and generally in the Himalayas, what happens is the waste is thrown near the riverside. And that waste is directly, it is piling up next to the river, and when it is raining, that waste is all the waste is completely flowing along with the water. So it has been a concerning issue in the not just in the Himachal Pradesh, which the video is from, and Uttarakhand. If we talk about all the Himalayan region, this problem has been there. But waste is something which generally most of the people talk about, but people generally do not talk about the wastewater. And in the Himalayan regions, it is generally like the water is flowing and everything just flows away. And once the things are gone away from our eyesight, we believe that the problem is gone. But we have two people here to help us to understand how big these problems are and how challenges have been occurring all over the places in the Himalayan regions. And with this, I would just first like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. To be very honest, he is one of an inspiration for me. I met him, I got in touch with him some 2-3 years ago, and his story of moving from Switzerland to his hometown in Assam was very moving, to change and bring the change in the Himalayan regions in his own hometown. He has worked with global organizations in waste, in developing livelihood and innovative ideas, and uh, he has received awards in things like global indicators for solid waste management, which are very important, and also the wastewater. How it has been, how these are the challenges which really create the problem. So I would like to invite Dr. Sanjay K. Gupta, and I would like to uh, ask him to please share his experience and his thought. Sir, would you like me to share your presentation?
Yes, Preeti. I'm on the mobile device, so it will help me if you can just run me through the presentation. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Sanjay K. Gupta. Thanks for the nice introduction. Just keeps motivating people like me to keep working and probably leave the heaven for the hell here, but keep working to make it a little better. I think the topic is very, very relevant. As Preeti said, that once out of the sight is out of the mind, and then accordingly is out of the planning process and everything. What I'm going to share with you based on my 22 years of experience is that I see both waste and wastewater as a governance challenge, and not necessarily a challenge in terms of technology or challenge in terms of financial resources, or even a challenge in terms of not having the right infrastructure. I think as Indians, we are very, very capable of doing anything that can be done anywhere in the world, whether it is the so-called first world country or developed country, or transitional countries or developing countries. We can do it here. And if you see other sectors, we have done it, from IT to infrastructure in roads and water purifications. But the hilly regions do pose a very specific challenge because of the topography, because of the kind of capacity that these regions have, because of the kind of institutions these have. So in the first part, I will speak primarily on the waste management part, and then probably I'll just wind it up in a uh, uh, one paragraph about the wastewater in the Northeast India, because there is nothing much to speak about. And I hope Tikender will take care of that when he speaks on the wastewater. Next, Preeti. So basically, why hilly regions are a typical problem. Of course, everybody knows that both for wastewater and waste management, topography is a challenge. It's a very undulating area. Uh, Not easy to find flat land to do easy infrastructures. But at the same time, if one is solution oriented, is also that is not so densely populated. If you leave behind some of the big cities, it's a sparsely populated. So probably one may not need the such big infrastructure. I will speak about it later on. That people often said that we don't have the land, but is that really constraint? So often it is said the topography is a challenge. True for some big cities, but not all of them. The bigger challenge, I've been also working with the marine litter and the river pollution with plastics and microplastics. I think the bigger challenges in these areas, the large tourism, and also the waste behavior that different cultures bring to that particular place. Say for a place like Simla, or for a place like Nainital, or for a place like when people travel to Kedarnath, they bring different waste disposal behavior, and it becomes a very complex things to manage all of that. And our institutions are not really capable of understanding waste behavior and disposal options that can truly handle the waste management problem. So if I have to highlight that what are the key things, so of course, as I said, topography in the hill terrain, construction of conventional sewage system. Let me emphasize, If you are thinking very traditional, the conventional sewage system is tough in the hilly terrain, like gravity-based sewer lines if you plant. That's challenging as well as expensive. So are there options to do that? The second is erosion and landslides, which are very frequent, whether it is in the northern part or if you go to the northeast of India. You had big ones in Sikkim recently. Last year we had in Dima Hisao in Assam. So these are regions which are very, very prone to erosion and landslides, and it's almost a regular affair over there. People have taken it as, okay, इस साल भी होगा. कितना बड़ा होगा, that is the question, not the question that नहीं होगा. The third is limited space. As I speak, hilly regions may not have enough flatland, but then we should always question, is that one of the reasons? Engineers will always tell you. It's not that I have any aversion to the engineers, but that conventional design thinking always says that we don't have enough land or don't have enough flat land. And that's why they don't have a good waste treatment plant or a disposal facility that is required in these regions. High construction maintenance cost due to the challenging terrain. Engineers will always tell you that the costs are multiple times than what it could be done in a plain area. But I do think this is a lesser problem, but this is a bigger problem in terms of perception and regions which are probably known to everybody. And then accessibility, since you always are fighting with the hard to reach areas, sparsely populated areas, small populations. So accessibility in terms of providing technical assistance or repairs or maintenance becomes a challenge. So this is the context in which one has to think that if I'm going to provide a solution to the hilly areas, either for waste management or wastewater management, these are our limitations. But given the conditions that we have, there are also solutions which can be easily explored. Let me just show you a picture. It's called Resources Up in Flames. We generally have at the policy level this talk of that the bigger is better. So that there are many places where people are actually talking about why not just build one plant for the Uttarakhand and one plant for the Himachal, bring all the waste and then just recover energy or do the recycling or whatever technology options are adopted. But is that really the thing that we should be doing? Is bigger is better or bigger is not better? If we look at the population and the kind of waste that we get in the Himalayan region, it certainly doesn't support waste to energy at all, particularly for the dry waste or recycling waste. And it is certainly not manageable. People often cite examples of Switzerland, that's a hilly country, and that has managed its waste very well in terms of incineration technologies or advanced incineration technologies. They call it by different names. But do we have those kind of resources? Do we have those kind of institutional mechanisms? Do we have that kind of planning that we can support whether we should go for one centralized system for waste disposal? So that certainly doesn't seem to be the case. And probably this very idea of comparing oranges with watermelons is becoming more and more popular without much thinking going into it. The second thing is that door-to-door collection. Not many people would see that places like Switzerland or places of, let's say, cold countries, they have twice a week collection system. Since our laws require that door-to-door collection should be provided all 365 days, is that really required the same thing in the hilly regions? And is it viable? Can one really pay for those kind of systems? At the first place, is it required? The second place, is it viable? The third place, are they really appropriate? Have you heard anywhere in Uttarakhand or Himachal or Leh and Ladakh people questioning that no, we don't require all 7 days or all 30 days waste collection systems? Can we have stream-based collection? Or can we do collection of a certain item on one day and certain other items? That's one. If one haven't lived in Switzerland, they won't be able to imagine. But that they have a stream-based solution. They one day they come for paper, one day they come for the organics, one day they come for the mixed waste. So they even a rich country like they just have 3 days in a week. So alternate days being, and then the charges are super high in if we convert into the Indian currency. So we need not necessarily adopt what they're doing, but we can certainly learn certain things that is suitable for us. Next, please. Next one. The other challenge from the mainland to the hilly region is that a lot of recycling in the mainland happens because of the informal sector. In fact, informal sector is the backbone of recycling and segregation and recovery of plastic in India. Something that does not exist in the hilly region for various reasons. First, this kind of population, migrant population, which can engage in the waste management is not there. The volumes are not there, and because of the terrain, people throw it at places where it disappears. So the traditional system, what appears in the mainland, and the policy that supports the informal sector simply cannot be found in. We cannot find this in the hilly regions. So expecting that the informal sector will retrieve some of the material like the mainland is not going to happen. And even though they know the business of waste collection, sorting much better than the municipalities do, they simply don't exist in the hilly regions. Next, please. So the other myth is that in regions that we cannot impose penalties, or it is politically unviable, as most of the ward commissioners or mayors or politicians will call it. But that's not the reason. Uh, my experience globally says that penalties are one of the best method of awareness. You don't penalize so many people. Actually, the moment it triggers the change, people do learn. And any of the countries, whether it is Switzerland or you call it Singapore or Canada, where you see or you really praise that they are very clean. I mean, that cleanliness has come because of the penalties. It hasn't come up because of your IEC or awareness or banners. It doesn't come that way. The penalties are the primary motivator and the primary prohibitor for doing good waste management. And it must go parallel everywhere. And this is more required in the hilly regions and also coastal region than anywhere else. Next, please. One of the things that the politicians always tend to argue a lot are based on their self-perception that people won't pay. I can give you dozens of examples just from India where people want to pay provided that you give them a good service. And they really don't mind. A city in South India, Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore, an organization is providing 326 apartment services where they pay in advance 150 rupees per house for stream-based collection, which I was speaking earlier. So they pick up Monday to Friday, only organics, Saturday recyclables, and then Sunday is not required. Sunday is a holiday. And it's a profit making, people pay. But when they initially started, the vociferous objections came from the ward commissioners and the politician, and not actually the service recipients or the customers as such. So people are willing to pay if the services are efficient, reliable, and decently priced. Next, please. The lesser said about this, the better, but everybody understands there is a direct relations between institutional corruption and cleanliness. So if you look at the 10 clear indicators of corruption indicators and the level of cleanliness, you will find that the lesser the index, the higher the cleanliness. From Calgary to Singapore, you can check it on the Google, the corruption index, and we'll set the top 10 clean cities also have the least corruption. Something that I don't know whether when it will come to India, but that seems to be the one of the main reasons. And I can tell you just one example. Things in the hilly regions which can be done in few crore of rupees. Let's say figuratively 10 crore rupees. Generally, the budgeting will be done because of a different technology choice or a different modeling choice will be anywhere between 8 to 12 times. So it might just jump 80 to 120 crore. And if that is there, then at the first place, you have not chosen the right technology. You have not chosen the right model for operating it. So there is a direct relationship between corruption and cleanliness, and corruption, Lisa said it better. Everybody understands that. Next, please. So those are the 7 myths I was trying to share with you. But what can we do? Everybody can talk about problems, and a lot of people over here in the group already know it. So both at individual level and community level, what can we do? Next, please. Just by segregating our waste, and if you give it in a very segregated manner, you can actually from day one reduce 30% of the waste going to the dump site. Very simple. The moment you have your dry waste separated, that 30% ends up with some recycling, informal, formal, or semi-formal. But if you are mixing it, it all gets contaminated and then ends up with the dump site. So try and see that both at individual level, at neighborhood, at community level, you segregate your waste, because you are actually helping 30% waste getting diverted from the DM side from day one. Next, please. Next one. Reduce your waste. Pretty simple. Start refusing these simple plastic straws or polythene bags and packaging which is not necessary. And for example, for the last 21 years, except in some circumstances, I haven't used a straw either for drinking any kind of beverages anywhere. I tell in advance, don't put an straw it unless somebody has put it by mistake and it is already wasted. I've used it. But just one simple example, you multiply my number of beverages drank over last 21 years with the number of straws, and you will realize that what difference you can make. So if you start doing it at your individual level, it's going to be a huge, huge contribution to the waste management. Next, please. One of the things, probably not many will agree, but I will still request you to share. Start talking about trash. And if you have not realized, look at what has happened in the last 7-8 years. If the top political leader starts talking about sanitation, about waste, about wastewater, things do change. It's important that these people are in power, these people are in position, so it makes a difference. But small differences starts happening when we as group start talking about trash, that how to manage it, what can we do, what are the challenges of doing it. At least people start thinking and then they start talking about it, then they start practicing it. So it's important that we must talk stress. Next, please. That's the way I could already keep segregate your waste. The more you segregate, the more waste goes for recycling. One of the easiest things to go is from day one, if you start composting. In the small towns, 60 to 70% of our waste is organic. And if you start doing composting at home, particularly the independent houses, it's less in apartments and all that. But recently, I've set up hundreds of compost units. We've seen this. You don't need to throw even a single kg of waste anywhere, and you can go actually zero organic organic from day one, your apartment, your society, your individual houses. And this is the problem. The organic waste is the problem. Whether it is contaminating the dry waste, it is contaminating other waste, the reason for the
Sanjay sir,
methane
your voice
generation, it
is
is the reason
breaking.
for the CHG.
You may turn off your
Uh,
camera. Your voice is breaking.
okay. And reuse. There are a lot of things today. Places where you can offer things which can be used or repaired and be sold. That's coming up. It's becoming an in
Sanjay
thing.
sir, your voice is still
Companies
breaking,
like
not clearly audible. You may turn off your camera. Yes.
Is it better now?
Yes.
So repair and reuse is becoming common. A lot of cities are setting up centers where you can repair your goods or simply drop it up and they will reuse or repair it and resold it. Next, please. And finally, I personally believe that zero waste societies are possible. I've done it in a city called Titabar with a 38,000 populations. We could manage 82 to 83% of waste, not dumping, basically composting, recovering for recycling, or recovering for the energy. And I don't think the situation differs in many hilly regions, and it cannot be done. In fact, hilly regions have a higher percentage of organic waste, so it is easily doable. So I would finally say that hilly regions require a very specific action policy that can actually change. We cannot simply look at with the same policy prism that we have looked through it. And regarding the wastewater in the northeast, the Lisa said there is hardly any collection of the wastewater. So in the entire northeast, you will not see a single functional wastewater treatment plant, both in terms of the challenges that their topography represent and also the challenges that the municipalities. I can honestly say that they are simply not capable of designing something which can work. There is no dearth of money. That, let me tell you very frankly. In Northeast, there is absolutely no dearth of money for setting up waste management system, whether it is for solid waste or wastewater. But neither they have the capacity, nor they have the planning, nor they have the willpower to do it. So in the entire Northeast, there is no wastewater treatment systems, and whatever is there is not functional. So that's all from my side. I hope that I didn't take additional time. It looks 18 minutes. Thanks, Preeti. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Like we had some that voice cracking from your side, but I hope most of the people got the idea of the gist of what work you have done. Personally, from learning from Dr. Sanjay, I have implemented zero waste school community and even zero waste Hemisphere project in Ladakh. Now coming to Mr. Tikender Pawar. First of all, I met both of them at this event, 2 days workshop, which was called as Forum for Inclusive and Resilient Sanitation in Hind Council last year in July 2022. And that was the time it was, for me, it was first time when hilly region sanitation was coming together. And it was very interesting to see that. Secondly, I would like to introduce Mr. Tikender. He is directly elected deputy mayor of Shimla city. So he is from the mountains and he has been seeing the problems. And if we talk about Shimla, Shimla has been one of the cities which has worked in banning the plastic bags and things like that, because I remember in early 2010 there were only paper bags. So that was something really nice to see. And sir has been involved in under his leadership he has been involved in projects like a smart city plan of Shimla City, then HVRA, CPI, CMT, and many other uh, initiatives are taken under him. Uh, he was also part of integrated mountain initiatives, Sustainable Mountain Development Summit 9, which happened in Ladakh, where, if we talk about waste, there was a legislator meet that happened, which talked about the extended producer responsibility of the waste. And so, sir would be sir has experience not only in the uh, wastewater part, I would say, but in waste or governance, coming from the political background. And in India, across India, he is an author, and he has tremendous experience, and I'm sure he can uh, take Sanjay sir's conversation further ahead and give us more direction and more knowledge about the region and the problems that we are trying to talk about today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Preeti, and for all those nice words. Am I audible? Clear? Great, thanks. May I know who are our participants? I mean, are they students? What is the level we are talking about? Let me just catch that node and then probably I'll start. I mean, they are what? Public representatives? I mean, who are most of the people who are joining us? I mean, generally, who are most of the people?
We have water experts to students.
Okay, great. Okay. So from water experts to common people. Okay,
yes,
so let me place the node where I have to. Well, first, I think what Dr. Sanjay was saying, in the Himalayan region, definitely you require a paradigm shift in everything, in planning, wastewater, and water. But there are certain general influences which you just cannot avoid. And I would term maybe 2 or 3 some generic issues which have also caught up in the Himalayan region. The first goes to the genesis of the whole question of urban planning. And we all know how this urban planning evolved some 2 centuries ago. And the slogan that continues to haunt our urban planners, and that slogan also continues to haunt our people in the Himalayan region, is that the solution to pollution is dissolution. With the health crisis for the first time, I mean, so you can understand what does that mean. So you have pollution, just put more water, okay? That has been the driving force. Unfortunately, we've not been able to come out. So that's one of the general stuff. The second general stuff is, which way are we heading? I mean, what I say, it's a completely unsustainable form of urban development that we are witnessing across India, at the same time in the Himalayan region. Why I say so? For the simple reason that we are treating cities as centers of where you have massive capital accumulation taking place, which means that the entire process of city building or city development is through this lens. How do you extract more and more surplus out of it? There are various ways, there are industrial ways, there is a way of, but one of the ways which has really taken credence in the last, say, 3 decades or 4 decades, I would say, is some of the utilities. I mean, some of the processes, take for example, because you are another generation, Preeti, but I come from a generation where when I studied, water was considered to be a right and education was a right. So now we have that Washington consensus, quote unquote, which says, is water a right or a need? So if water is a need, then you have a number of players who would come and play, and that's exactly what is happening. So that paralysis which is taking place in the overall urban governance has not limited itself to the plains, but it has also migrated to the hills. So which means, the whole bunch of idea, treating cities as engines of growth. I mean, what the hell does that mean? Cities shouldn't be engines of growth. I mean, that's not. So growth is a new paradigm. And don't forget, I'll come to that maybe a little later. The third element, which is very generic, is that when we talk about urban planning, it's just the land use plan which we are focusing, and with the same lens we are doing it in the Himalayas. In the Himalayas, we ought to have an understanding that the development plans must be succeeded by a climate action plan, which means that there ought to be a geological plan, because mountains, unlike plains, do not have the same terrain. not the same geology. At places you'll have a tough rock, at places you'll have completely landslide prone areas where you shouldn't have habitation, and that means you shouldn't have any process of wastewater treatment, or for that matter, treatment. So that paralysis, I mean, three paralysis, I would say. And the fourth one is, now what are the solutions? I mean, I understand the whole fancy stuff, not, drinking half a glass of water. I mean, I don't ridicule them. The point is, and, doing organic, but it's not that simple. It's the process is more technocentric, capital intensive technocentric solutions, which is taking place at the pan India level, has also creeped in. I'll give you examples to that. I mean, your Ladakh. And fifthly, lastly, I mean, why I was laughing when you were saying you've made zero waste to your school. I mean, I don't say that I doubt, but that is not possible, Preeti, for the simple reason we did the waste audit for Ladakh. Let me quote Ladakh here. And do you know, in that waste audit, the 10 biggest polluters, I mean, but just remind me when it's 15 or 17 minutes, because, you poke a politician and, then we don't stop once we have the mic and the camera and when people were around. So let me know when 16, 17 minutes. So, and the waste audit, we found that out of the 10 biggest polluters, 8 biggest polluters are multinational corporations. 2 are our Indian corporations, Amul, one more. And the 75% and 80% waste that gets generated, what the hell are you going to do with it? It's neither compost, you can't do it compost, biodegradable, nor recyclable. So the point that you produce, EPR, I think is so quintessential for the hilly regions. You have to think out of the box, and it's working nowhere. Now, having said that, the generic sense in which in the framework we are working in the Himalayas, let me come to the specificities. Who are we? The Indian Himalayan region. Let me just share some statistics. In fact, you can record, or maybe I'll send an article, because I'll write an article after this. So this is some 2,500 kilometers stretched. Of course, we know 11 states, 2 UTs. 5.5 lakh square kilometers is the overall area that we have. But look at our population. That's why we do not matter. So one of the points of intervention at the meta level has to be taking this whole debate with the Finance Commission, because Planning Commission is gone now. We have the Niti Aayog. But Finance Commission, till 2 finance commissions prior to this one, always used to work on the demographic, aspect. Now we have lesser population. What is our population? Just 50 million, less than 50 million. What is India's population? You know that. So if we are just 5 crores and India is 140 crores, where do we matter? But we matter because we are the food bowl, of India. So in this whole process, the Finance Commission has to be approached in creating a new mountain architecture. That's what I'm arguing for. A new mountain architecture for sanitation, for waste, for wastewater, for water, because the scheme that you draw in the plains can't work here in the mountains. It's a different thing. That's what Sanjay was also saying. I think that's important. So, and then this entire region, that's another lens that one must view when we talk about the Himalayan region. How have we viewed the Himalayan region? Not to talk about, some 4,000 years migration, because, if you go by the anthropological logic, then we have the Kassites have been a dominating force in this. Who are the Kassites? They migrated from the Caspian Sea. Okay, we called Khashas in Himachal, in Nepal, they are there, and of course in Uttarakhand and most of the Himalayan region. But they used in a very, I would say, symbiotic relationship. That's how they use the mountains, forests, everything. Come the British colonial period, and we have seen mountains as a utility. So, Preeti, what is Himalayas? It's a utilitarian concept that evolved during the British Raj. Why they wanted? Because they wanted timber, they wanted teak, the best navy in the world, they wanted wood. The wood came from our forests. Then that is how your rail came to Simla, the railways. Post 1947, we should have taken a different view. Till some period, I would say we had a view, but unfortunately, the same view continues in the Himalayan region. What is that view? The view is utility. How are we measuring our states? Ladakh, in the photovoltaic capacity. What is the capacity? In Himachal, hydropower generation capacity, not realizing that the tectonic shifts are still taking place. Uttarakhand, we have 23,000 megawatt this is how, so, the whole question of what I said, Washington consensus, now it's the utilitarian consensus. It's a complete unanimity in the political discourse about treating mountains as utilities for forest, for water, for various wells. That is one of the major reasons of our crisis that we're feeling now. And of course, we have. We produce one of the best fruits, dry fruits and all. So, what is the urban population? Let's try to understand, because we have done a massive study of all the 13 states. We are almost 31%, 2011. Okay, not because Himachal is 10%, but take for Aizawl. Aizawl would be what, 80%, because the entire state lives in one city. Okay, so Ladakh again is Leh. I mean, itself, I think it's a major area where you have. And Mizoram is 52.11%, which is urban. And how many urban local bodies are there? There are almost 17 municipal corporations, maybe now more, 20. Councils are 228. I just want to give you a glimpse. I mean, just to people to understand where we are when we talk about the urban stuff. Nagar Panchayats 162, that comes to almost 407 local bodies is what we are looking at in this discussion. Maybe now, because this is little data, some 4 or 5 years old, now that must have extended to, because panchayats turn into council. And I'm sure people know what is a municipal council, what is a Nagar Panchayat, what is municipal corporation. What is the population? Now, this is very interesting. What is the population density? The population density for municipal corporation, for Nagar Panchayat, and the municipal councils is very interesting. It's 5,555 persons per square kilometer for the municipal corporation, which is not much. 2,662 for your councils, and quite strange. And I was also curious to know why is it so. For the Nagar Panchayats, where the density should have been lower, it is almost 3,430. But why is it so? Because most of this is in Assam. So Assam still has that larger, Nagar Panchayats, which should have been councils. So when we're talking about waste and we are talking about wastewater, water, it is this density that we have to keep in mind. So the solution that we are offering in Switzerland, the solution that we are offering in Singapore, these solutions are not going to work here. Just to give you an idea. So it has to be very mountain specific, very demographic specific, what kind of people we have. What is our access to water? Average is almost 68% piped water in this region. And groundwater is almost 27%. Surface water body is almost 7%. That goes to the households. Okay, it's not very bad, let me tell you, in the Himalayan region. The proximity to the source, within premises, we find 57%, and near premises, 24%, but 14% is still far away. So people have to still walk away, even in the urban centers, to get water. What is the situation of sanitation? Well, according to the government data, because all that I'm quoting is the government data, okay, they say it's almost 92% there is a toilet. What about collection and conveyance, of the shit that we produce? And let me just share a funny anecdote. I mean, because the towns and urban centers that we are creating, this was there in plains for GMM. It was not in mountains, okay? And one of my engineering friends, he said, Tikender, do you know what is the difference between an average worker and the shit that he produces? I said, what is the difference, sir? Tell me. He said, we planned our cities in such a way that an average worker travels almost 8 kilometers. And the shit is almost 14 kilometers, because the STPs are, designed in such a way that it is travel almost 14, 15 kilometers. That is not the way. Unfortunately, that is what is happening. You've seen that in Ladakh happening. I'll come to Ladakh a little later. So we have to think what Dr. Sanjay was saying at the meta level. So urban households, closed drainage. Now, there's a very interesting data that we have is 20%. Open drainage, where is it going? In the open drains, okay? Our fecal matter, 50%. No drainage, 30%. There's no drainage. You do not know what is happening. This is all government data. So I think a lot more has to be thought of, because there are problems. That's why I said it's a paralysis of the planning system. And then treatment of sewage. I'll come to solid waste. There's nothing much, because already that's been covered. It is said that almost 3,500 million liters per day is generated, and the treatment capacity is pretty only for 1,035 million liters. So if that is the reality, where is it going? It is going to the entire ecosystem. It is contaminating our water. And in Leh, I can tell you, because I was supervising, I mean, in fact, wrote the vision document for Leh, I'll tell you, 95%, because, it's both spatial and temporal. Do not forget that. Now, what is spatial? We all know. Temporal is as the time changes. The changes that have taken place in Leh, because Leh was accustomed only to dry toilets. We brought in tourism. We switched over from a conventional land, utility to tourism, and we switched from the dry latrines to your wet toilets. The groundwater level is not more than 10 or 12 feet. And 95% of the groundwater in Leh is now contaminated. So then what will you do? Now, let's try to understand this architecture. What happens? I mean, before I just jump and then come back to those anecdotes. What will you do? This is what Sonam Wangchuk and I, because we are part of that task force. Now now they're not even calling the task force. So Tu and I, we've taken Deepak Sananji also, who's a retired additional chief secretary from Himachal. So we said, yeah, you have a glacier on top of you. Tap your glacier water. The capital cost would not be. Now let me just substantiate my capital stuff also here. Capital cost would not be more than 10 or 12 CR, and the operation cost would be minimum. Why don't you do this? You have gravity, else you have always lost the gravity stuff. Instead, what is happening in Leh? They are lifting water from Indus. Because Indus, it would be what, 150 CR capex, and the OPEX would be almost 10 CR. That is the way how we are developing. Because there's no people's participation in this whole process of governance, of water, sanitation, you call it governance or management, I think the people are missing. That is the crux where we have to build. And that's how we have seen how it has happened. Now, what is happening? Let's take okay, let me just also quote your solid waste stuff, because it is in the Himalayan region, we have a figure. It's almost 5,189.82 TPD, tons per day, of waste is generated. And they say 87% of the wards are covered. I doubt that. Guess how much is processed? 44%. Rest goes to dumping. Some they call scientific land site. You come to Simla, I'll show you the scientific land site, what kind of scientific land fill sites are, and the others dump site. That's the video that you've shown. That was a scientific land site. So that is not the way how we have to work. So what could we do? There's one more problem, I think. How much time do I have, Preeti? Maybe 5 more minutes? Okay.
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
So we have that IPCC report. It's called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which has time and again reminded us, this IPCC 6, that there is a very strong influence of climate impact in the entire region. So what is the impact? What they're saying is that the two most vulnerable zones in the Indian subcontinent. One is the Himalayan region, another one is the coastal region. So I'll not go to the coastal region. What is that they're saying about the Himalayan region? What they're saying is that you'll have a larger precipitation in a shorter period of time, which means that if you have if you're not able to hold your water, then what you're doing is, and that's a common feature that you find across, your water at the top has actually almost dried up. So what you're doing is you're going to the valley, and valley you start lifting. Again, your carbon footprint increases. So whatever you say, I mean, that carbon footprint is further going to go up. So so the entire question of mountain typologies, I think that's an area which cannot be alien from this discussion of water and waste, has also to be kept in mind. What kind of cities are you going to build? Because if water is so essential and wastewater is so essential, then I think the entire built-up has to be, and I have this figure, I mean, if you just want to understand. So annually, interestingly, there's not much in the rainfall, but the pattern has definitely changed. And because of deforestation and the kind of urbanization, so runoff water is like really increased substantially. And I would suggest for our young people to just keep in mind that it's not that our predecessors didn't know how to build cities or towns. Okay, so we have a manual of how the mountain building is to be done. So if you will find all the drains that are constructed in the mountains are now concrete, whereas the British manual for mountain engineering suggests that it should be embanked so that water percolates, seeps, it doesn't gush, and doesn't really create a problem. And I think what also needs to be done is revival of some of the very interesting old methods, conventional methods. This is what we've seen Uttarakhand happening, not just focusing on piped water, but also, some of your community-driven efforts where you have seen the revival of some of these coffers or ponds where you could easily get water easily, and it was not of a much problem. But because of the vicious cycle that hydropower is one of the ways that really creates lots of problem. So I think it's both collectively and individually. And what I suggest is at least a gap of 60 to 90 days for more decentralized urban participation, urban planning, where we are able to build these structures, where we are able to bring in the community to this whole process. Unfortunately, what is happening is your large consultants who are technological driven, more capital intensive technology, they'll end up in these towns, even small towns, and the solutions that they're offering is of the West. The urbanization in the Himalayas is unlike the West. West, the urbanization took place, when they migrated lots of people from the countryside to the cities. Here, it's a rural-urban continuum. A person who's living in an urban center, take for example Leh, also has a house in Nubra. Don't you know that, Preeti? Someone who's living in Simla also has a house. Someone living in Dispur also has. So it's a rural-urban continuum that we should keep in mind. I think that is one of the important issues that I wanted to raise. Finally, we are at the crossroads for the simple reason because things are not in our hands. There are many other players who still consider mountains to be more from a utility aspect, more from an economic aspect, and not from a sustainability aspect. So what you require is more decentralized. Instead of large sewerage treatment plants, what you require is a decentralized septage management. What you require is also, I think it's high time then we should talk about, the whole question of reuse in this wastewater, which we are hardly working on. But all said and done, I think I hardly see a ray of hope. Of course, somewhere, because in Ladakh, what we were able to do, but that was after spending so much time, so much energy in that process. And what finally is happening? You are lifting water from the Indus. What finally is happening? You are constructing a STP, whether that was required or not. So the whole process of people's participation, engaging them, involving them, I think that could be one of the ways and one of the forms. And for heaven's sake, let's understand, zero waste is fine. But I think more is the kind of waste that is being generated, the kind of waste that is coming to my towns and cities. How do we restrict that? Can we do that? I think we can. But what we require is a more strong, solid political will for that. Why can't we ban pulpit bottles? It's as simple as that. From my childhood days, I have had milk in those tinned cans that used to come from Amritsar and Shimla. Why can't we have milk in the water bottles? They say there's no solution, no alternative. So I don't think that is the problem. The problem is this whole bunch of, I would say the gang up of large consultants who say, you do not know how to run a city. You don't have the capacity. We say, yeah, we were in Mohenjo-daro 4,500 years ago. We knew how to build our drains and all even in that time, and to manage our shit is as simple as that. So to manage our shit, we are saying, no, we require big technology. It's not like that. Of course, urbanization in the mountains is different. So I think it has to be a very cohesive, very converged form of understanding, not just limited to water, wastewater, and sanitation. It has to do largely with the whole dynamics of the ecosystem of of the urban planning, of understanding this rural-urban continuum. And I think also, take for example, this last example that I want to cite. When Simla was built, because our communities never lived on mountain tops. It's the Burghers, Britishers who came here who taught us how to even you can live on a mountain top. Our settlements mostly were along the rivers. But I think even the credit has to be given to the devil, isn't it so? So when water schemes were created, they created those catchment areas. Where are those catchment areas now? So no habitation was allowed in those catchment areas. So I think you have to just go back to the basics of urban planning. A, it has to be aligned with nature. B, it has to be completely in sync with the people. So mountains have to be for the people, and the people have to be not for the profit of the few. Now, lastly, because you just spoke to what is the point of a Renuka dam in Himachal and then drawing water from Renuka that is in Himachal and constructing those pipelines, providing water to Delhi. This is how mountains are looked at. I'm sure you know that. The Renuka Dam is coming up in Nahan district in Himachal Pradesh, where they say, okay, we'll give you 40 megawatt. I say, yeah, we generate almost 20,000 megawatt here. We don't want your 40 megawatt. But that water is being taken to Delhi. That utilitarian concept is not going to help us. Unfortunately, that's how it is happening. Either tourism, 4-lane, national highways. We don't want those national highways. We want what we want. Nobody has, in fact, asked that. That is what is required. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, sir, for all that information. And the EPR thing, the data you mentioned, I was the one responsible with Zero Waste Himalaya to do the analysis and training. I would request everyone in the group to ask their questions. I think Ajit sir had asked a question. Maybe, sir, you can unmute and ask the question directly to Sanjay sir.
Yeah, good evening to you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, this question is to either Sanjay ji or Tikender ji. See, lot of tourist influx is there to the hills. So, like the goods are transported way up and consumed there. Similarly, some way of conveyance can be there. Some awareness can be there with the multinationals and also our own Indian governmental producers. To bring back this single-use plastics back to the plains. Is it possible? Some awareness. Anyone? Question? Answer.
Tikender, you go first. I'll come back.
Sanjay ji, because you spoke about waste and all, it's better you speak.
Thanks. It is possible. It is being done at several places. The challenge is, and Tikender ji has put it very at the beginning of his talk, is that this utilitarian system, or let's say that the way these things are designed by the big industrialists, they make profit on per piece of PET bottle, per liter of PET bottle sold, or a shampoo or sachet or whatever it is, XYZ. But when it comes to EPR, they will pay it per kg. And how much they are paying? 6 or 7 rupees. How much the profit they are making? Probably 600 rupees. So this whole buffoonery that is going around EPR is one of the reasons that in the current policy paradigm, it cannot be done. But if you really want to do and you implement under the 74th Amendment, you take the 74th Amendment as your right, let municipalities make the policies and say that I will not accept that. And if 10 bottles come, for those 10 bottles, whatever the collection, transportation, and recycling cost comes up, that has to be paid by that company, or we will not allow this brand of company. That's how it has to happen for the hilly regions. As I said, that the informal sector doesn't exist there. They don't live off waste. It's not their livelihood in the mountains. So you cannot rely on them like the mainland. So it can happen, but it completely requires a policy paradigm shift.
Thanks a lot. And as a corporate,
I just want to add one point, sir. To me, if you honestly ask, plastic bottle is not even an issue because we have this whole informal sector. I mean, our kabadi walas, I always say they are our best sanitation, waste. What do you call? What do you call?
warriors,
Engineers,
warriors,
warriors, or whatever.
saviors,
Because
saviors.
Recyclers.
so there is some kind of market or whatever, but my, my concern, if you honestly ask, is this whole question of Tetra packs that are entering. These chutkis, gutkas, neither recyclable, no value, and the way they are getting dumped into our mountain ecosystem. It's scary, I'm telling you. It's really scary because there's nothing. And as Sanjay ji was saying, I mean, you take it to waste to energy point plant, and then you have more toxic waste in your environment. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Do we have more people? In case you have questions, thoughts, suggestions, you can raise your hand. In fact, if they are delaying, I think the participants maybe they're thinking. So something has come there. Okay. So I would like to ask Tikender a question to you. All these things that we spoke, that both of you spoke today, we have been talking a lot about these for a while, whether it's wastewater or whether it's solid waste management or whether it's waste segregation or for that matter, the CPCB report, and you rightly said so, that even in India, when we look at like overall, India also has got just about 25% of the wastewater that's getting treated. And of the 25%, also, we really don't know how much of it is treated to the quality, when they can be safely disposed. Huh? And you also mentioned that you don't have much hope. So, what is the way forward? And I honestly feel that we have such strong policies that we bring out sometimes. Of course, they are not contextual. So maybe implementation becomes a problem, or there is completely no operationalization plan. So, just for the sake of making policies, we are making a lot of them. But governance, I think, has already been highlighted that's completely lacking. So why can't we really think of a policy and an operationalization plan? And then, of course, all that we speak of theory of change and indicators and all that. Why can't we have that and ensure that there is some kind of success metrics for that?
Well, when I said I don't have any hope, I didn't say I don't have any hope from the people. I said I don't have any hope from the current dispensation. I mean, A, B, C, D. Because and to me, the solution is that people will have to reclaim that right. I mean, that whole question of ownership. I mean, if they start owning this whole, or maybe we should give it a try. Some at certain level, and we can do it in the Himalayan region because Himalayan region have this characteristic of great homogeneity as well, where they have evolved in a certain kind of manner, but have now been like toxicized by this influence of, and why should they not be? I mean, if you honestly ask me, why should they not get money from tourism and all? But can there be a sustainable way? I think we require more dialogue, more discussion on that. And I do not say A model versus B model. I don't want to create those binaries. What I suggest is that the current model is unsustainable. To me, the sustainable model can only be if it is more people's participation and empowering them. How do you empower them? Sanjay ji was saying one of the instruments and tools, you said policy, could be strictly implementing the 74th Constitutional Amendment. In none of the cities, Simla was where we had water, everything under one utility, under the local government. Now, even that has gone into a company where, because of various reasons. So, I think we should give it a try where the parastatals, maybe in smaller towns, you can say that that's not their capacity. But in larger cities, larger towns in the Himalayan region, the parastatals should be like moved aside, and the ownership must be given to the cities, and finally empowering the people and the cities. So my point is, there has to be lots and lots of opposition Only then you can get a far better model. No opposition in this jugglery or in this whole process. So to me, I think it's a process which is important. Unfortunately, we are not implementing that process. I'm not against or pro any technology. What I'm against is, where is that process of people empowerment? Where is that process where you, okay, go back to the people, ask them, okay, how do they want, I mean, let's say, for example, how do they want their shit or water to be managed? Why are you again becoming a repository of everything? Like, I'm there, I once get elected, I'll give you water, I'm there, I'll get you. That's not the way how it works. That's not the way how it's working. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that privileged position, I think, we need to really, in true sense, I think democracy is like a democratic way is very important. Even what you spoke about activism, I think it's very important that some bit of activism should also be there to counter and question. So somewhere, we don't question anything, whether it was Swachh Bharat mission or any mission for that. Yeah.
So that Uttarakhand, I just forgot the spring shed movement that they have built. It's a very interesting movement, by the way. We should call this person. Sanjay ji must be remembering. I am not remembering his name. He was there with us in Ladakh. But it's a beautiful thing that they have done, revival of the spring sheds. I mean, it's so important, and how they've been able to revive it, catch water at the top. But then the community was part and parcel of that. They owned that stuff, not, some parastatal or something that. It's a spring shed movement in Uttarakhand.
Yes. I think it's also there in the Northeast as well. Yeah, spring shed management program.
Because once it is there, then they know where your shit is going to go. Unlike what we did in Simla. You know how the Simla catastrophe. I mean, the best planners of the country. I don't want to name them because that doesn't. I mean, that shouldn't be here, but I can tell you the consultants who planned this. So there's Ashwini Khat water treatment plant. I also remember 2004, they constructed a water treatment plant. And in 1994. 2004, they constructed a sewage treatment plant 5 kilometers upstream a water treatment plant. And the consultants did this. So you have a sewage treatment plant 5 kilometers upstream a water treatment plant. Since 2005-7, every year, third year, you were getting hepatitis in the city. Of course, now we've gotten rid of that, but and I'm writing a book on that. Well, once that comes, it's called the Shibla water story, So that's my problem, because we never went back, asked the people, can you have a shit? I mean, and this is not even a sewage treatment plant, it was just a shit well. So the entire sewage used to...
even in decentralized Tikender, I've seen some places, some schools, in fact, I had visited in Haryana.
So my point was that people there decide, in this spring shed, that no toilets on that side, where you have the spring. So, you can do that. That's my point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there is a question in the chat box, which maybe Sanjay, you can take it. That's, can you elaborate more on the 74th Constitution?
The 74th Constitutional Amendment. So, like the 73rd Constitutional Amendment, which gives power, decentralized planning and power to the village panchayat. Similarly, on the same level, these powers are given to the municipalities or municipality-like institutions to decide on planning and the processes for doing and providing all the services. And they wield tremendous power. I mean, I will be very honest. I haven't met a single mayor till date or a ward commissioner who has completely read the 74th Amendment and the power that is designed to be given to the urban local bodies. So even though these powers are there, they have seldom been used. And some of the time when the municipalities have used it because of some enlightened exceptional mayor or deputy mayor, they did tremendous work. Because they could directly cite, okay, I'm working, I'm using this provision of the 74th Amendment to decide on this matter. So the 74th Amendment is basically delegates all the power to run the urban local bodies in a way that the people decide. and not what the state government or the central government decides. They can only provide you the guidelines or the policy guidelines or operational guidelines, but ultimately you can make, for example, you can make your own solid waste management law by using the 74th Amendment. You can create your own water utility by using the 74th Amendment. You can change the land use pattern under the municipal boundary by using the 74th Amendment. That's the kind of power the 74th Amendment gives to the people.
I just want to add, Fazia.
Yeah, please.
74th Amendment is actually a kind of succession to the National Commission on Urbanization that came in 1985. So Rajiv Gandhi was instrumental into building that. And Charles Correa was the chair. Now we have lone surviving member who's called Kirti Bhai, who runs INAF in Ahmedabad. Now, if you see the National Commission on Urbanization, it's phenomenal, let me tell you. They're good and bad points, but it is phenomenal. I mean, it's almost 1,000 pages, and I've gone through all of them. It's really a fascinating work. Unfortunately, that was not taken to task. But 74th Amendment is also one of the fallouts. And there's a very famous saying what Charles Correa used to say, because he and I, we were together in a London School of Economics conference. He said, Tikender, there should be a competition not among cities. The competition should be between the mayors and the chief ministers. That's when the cities can grow. So you can understand, I mean, and I was also a member to review the 74th Constitutional Amendment. In fact, this amendment was written by K.C. Sivaramakrishnan. I just wanted to contextualize it a little.
Correct.
So K.C. Sivaramakrishnan and we were part of the national team. He was our chair. I was one of the members, lone political member. Rest we had commissioners and all. So there's a fascinating work that we did 2013-14, reviewing it. But again, nobody have looked at it. So the primary thing is 3 Fs that were to be transferred: functions, functionaries, and finances. Finances, functions, functionaries, as Sanjay ji was pointing out, the cadre should be of the municipalities. The chief minister should not be able to transfer, but we know how the commissioners are implanted. That's how it's done. Planning, what he said, very quintessential. Financial, very quintessential. None of that has happened. And finally, before dying, I still remember, and that's what I want to tell our participants. Casey said, he said, Tikender, what is your smart city? The new smart city stuff? I said, sir, you've been my guru. I mean, he was the chairperson. I said, you only please tell me. And he was very good at quotes and unquotes, okay, giving those proverbial comments. He said, it is like writing an obituary of the 74th Constitutional Amendment. Because under the smart city, you have the SPVs who do not even report to the council, forget about anything else. So that's why I said, when I said, I'm not hopeful, because I'm not too hopeful from the current discourse, any discourse I'm talking about, because they viewed from the top. It has to be viewed from the bottom. The 74th Amendment says it has to be bottom-led. Ward Sabhas is quintessential in planning. The ward will create a plan. I mean, so therefore, process is important. Unfortunately, that process is gone. And of course, there are shortcomings in the 74th Amendment also, because when this was being written, migration was not an issue. Now you have 35 crore people, almost more than 350 million people who migrate. 74th Amendment doesn't talk about that, because that time when it was written, nobody had thought of that. Yeah, so just to elaborate on how this is important.
Maybe I can just give you one example in a very lighter note. You all know people call Maulang, one small village in Meghalaya, as the cleanest village in Asia. But they say it's because they haven't visited many of the places in, say, for example, Japan. But they are still, I will say, the cleanest village in India. And the reason why it became cleanest, because none of the consultants or city planners went there to give their advice.
Yeah, I think maybe we can take Preeti one last question that's there in the chat box, and then we can close after that. Mansi, are you raising your hand for more questions? I can see you popping in and out from there, huh? But somebody has asked a question on Aarti, in fact, has asked a question on civil organizations or NGOs. Can they use the power of 74th Constitution Amendment?
Well, yes, they can use it, because, their role comes in... Oh, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
In this whole process of ward sabhas, when there is a ward sabha. So, once there is a ward sabha, they can really intervene, the civil society groups, who can be a pivot. Of course, ward sabha comprises all the electorate, and then a ward committee is elected. That's how the structure is. But unfortunately, that is not happening. Another way how the NGOs can get engaged, I mean, under this umbrella, but unfortunately, that umbrella is almost torn now. Is, I think, by the way of the standing committees, because very few people know in that 74th Amendment, there is a provision for having these standing committees. And in these standing committees, you have elected people, but you can also have civil society groups invited. Of course, they won't have a voting right, that's a separate matter, but that they can play a pivotal role. For example, in Simla, I was the chairperson of the Social Justice Committee. Now, Fauzi, just guess, the Social Justice Committee before me had never met. And I believe after me also, maybe seldom it met. But what Sanjay was saying, I mean, how many have read the act? If you read the ambit of the Social Justice Committee, so in Simla, the Social Justice Committee had the power even to summon the Chief Secretary on social justice issues. If there is violation that is done at his home, with his wife, I mean, if he's a male, and I mean, gender violation, social violation, that is the power of a social justice committee. And likewise, we have different planning committees, finance and all. So the civil society groups, so we had a person from a Dalit organization, in Simla, who was an Ambedkar movement, because there's so many issues, intricate issues that only the elected can't resolve. So you ought to have people. So yeah, they can be part and parcel of that. But it also depends on how much are you engaged with the city, how much you really poke in your nose there, visit and tell, okay, we want to be part and parcel. But unfortunately, this is not coming from the top. From the top, the only thing is brick mortar, walls, parking. That's how that's what the city governments are left to.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tikender.
sir.
I think
I just have one question, if with your permission. Um, as we were discussing about these small pouches and which do not get collected by the rag pickers or do not get recycled. Are there any innovations, any startups who have come up with the solution? So I would like to do something for my area and get these all small pouches collected with support of all the organizations here. But we want to know how we can recycle it. Is there any process or any innovations right now?
Nancy, would you like to, in fact, unmute and speak first, and then maybe we can take up both the questions.
Thank you. Thanks. Is it some?
Heard Mansi very well.
Are you hearing me?
We heard of it.
Are you hearing me correctly?
Yeah, we heard what you said.
Now it is also clear.
No, we heard what you
So
said.
thanks, Aarti, and thanks, Tikender and Sanjay for the presentation. Aarti, to just let you know, you may be interested to just get in touch with Waste Warriors. And even why not think of starting your own Waste Warrior chapter? We can connect you with them. Sure. Answering your question? You just please let me know how I can connect. It will be great. Sure. Do write to us at w4w, hello, w4w@gmail.com, and I will connect you to Angad, who is leading the Waste Warriors. Okay? Great. Thank you so much. Thanks. Actually, we are running out of
now,
time.
Yeah, we are really racing this time. Preeti, would you like to conclude, please?
Yeah. Thank you to both the speakers and all the participants that asked the questions, and even though the time has been overpassed, still staying back and paying attention and being interested in knowing the region and problems. I would just like to end with the thing that how Sanjay said, talked about the 7 myths. And if I talk about Tikender sir, the one thing that I've written down, solution to pollution to delusion. Yeah, these are true things, and that really make us think. And other thing was like the migration, how the cities are getting more populated and the other parts are empty, and how the natural resources requirement in these places are taking a big role. So that is generally creating the problem. I would like to thank both the speakers for coming to this session, and it has been a great session. Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank each and every participant for joining the session.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to thank our speakers, Dr. Sanjay K. Gupta and Tikender S. Panwar, for the wonderful session, and CGAP for facilitating such enriching conversations. Thank you, Preeti, for moderating the session. And we will continue our water conversations towards water conservation through Wednesdays for Water, Friday Waters, and Monday Munching with Women for Water. Meanwhile, this week, we invite you to our Friday Water session on visual arts and water on 27th October. Next week in the Wednesdays for Water session on November 1st at 5 p.m. IST, do join us for a discussion on Lake Pond Series 7, Reimagining India's Water Bodies. Do keep checking our social media accounts and website www.w4w.in for regular updates. And thanks to all. Take care of yourself. Bye.